Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our training on evolving the economic appraisals for land transport investments. I am Midnight Gomez from MobiliseYourCity Secretariat in Brussels, and I am happy to welcome also our colleagues from SLOCAT, Alice Yu, Director of Policy, Outreach and Strategic Communication. Also, Nicola Medimorek, Director of Data Analysis and Research from SLOCAT. As well, we are happy to welcome Mikhail Kapetanakis, the research analyst with the Economic Law and Policy Program from the International Institute of Sustainable Development, SAIDI. We are happy to introduce also Mr. Bertrand Golu, the Principal Transport Specialist from the Asian Development Bank, Rob McKierney, the CEO of IREP, the International Road Assessment Program. And we would like to start this meeting a little bit to knowing what are your thoughts and what are your expectations from this training. So I don't know if you have the Mentimeter that we have prepared for us, Nicola, that you can share so we can have more participation from the general public in this part of our session. So we would like to start by getting to know you, all the different participants that are in this meeting. And for that, we have created a Mentimeter, and you can join us at Mentimeter and use this code 76144480. The idea will be to understand a little bit from which type of organizations are you joining us today? From the government, financial institution, private sector, research, NGOs, practitioner, engineer, planner, operator services, provider, or any other type of organization. So we will give you around 2 to 3 minutes just to make sure that you can provide us your answer. And then we can continue with the next question. And for those who haven't entered, you can just access mentimeter.com and include the code that is on the top of the screen. And so far we are 20 participants. Okay, so we have received 10 answers so far, mostly from research institutes, NGOs, practitioners, of course, we got included here. 7614. There you go. Practitioners, engineer, and also planners. Maybe we can continue with the next question. So what motivates you on a personal level to advocate for sustainable transport? And this is more like an open question, but you can also reply based on the same code at Mentimeter. You can tell us why did you end in sustainable transport, or what is the main motivation, and why are you advocating for it? If it's so I see one answer already: better living quality. The suffering I face as a choice user, I think that's really important for most of us. We have suffered already some issues with transportation in general, and it's a really good motivation. The effective use of public resources, the equity, the decarbonisation, local air pollution, also really important, and the impacts on the healthcare. The health, safety, equity, communication, and connection. Yes, of course, the safety, road safety, it is really important. Fragmented transportation, convenient and safe for me to go around the city, enjoy life. It's the most important urban problem. Reducing carbon emissions and inclusive transportation at city level. This will help us to build safe, resilient, and inclusive cities. Social inclusion, urgency to transition to sustainable mobility in the upcoming years, I guess related also to climate change and to the importance of, yes, the sustainability of our current model. My passion for enabling cities with clean and active mobility motivates me to constantly work towards sustainable transport, quality of life, independency for children to move safely around. So really, really important. Thanks all of you for your different responses. I think for sure for us we share also that same motivation. I think we can go to the next question. What are your expectations for this training? What are you waiting for us, and how can we help to direct what we are going to present today? Maybe you can also share us a little bit on Mentimeter based on what you already read and saw during the last couple of days about this training, and also for us to make sure that we are aligning with your expectations. So we have identified a better methodology than the usual value of time savings. Thank you. Learning best practices on sustainable transportation systems. Learn about economic impacts of land use transport planning. Maybe we can have another answer before continuing. Okay, learn innovative methodologies for economic benefit quantification. Know more about economic appraisals for transport investments, how to incentivize and increase investments in public transport, as well as non-motorized transport. So yes, I think we are aligned with your expectations, how to argue and convince decision makers to use more sustainable economic appraisals methodologies. Thank you. I think we are aligned also with your expectations. How to better incentivize public and private investments in low carbon transport modes, how to get a deeper understanding of finance in the transport sectors. Okay, thank you. And I think with this question, we can close a little bit on the welcoming and the welcoming session. So I would like to present a little bit on the methodology. How are we going to work on this training? First of all, we are going to identify which are the issues with conventional economic appraisals for land transport, and a little bit of how can we do some robust economic case for investing in public transport, walking and cycling. That will be our main focus. Then some recommendations to decision makers to evolve conventional economic appraisals for land transport. We will also present from Mobilize Your City how is the measurement selection process in our cities, in the sums that we have contributed so far. And we will also talk about how to build the capacities to evolve the appraisals. And that will be our last part with the different participants that we have for this morning in Europe or the afternoon in China. So yes, I think we can start. I will give the floor to Alice to start with the first session. What are the issues with conventional economical appraisals for land transport? Alice, good morning, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Minal, for the introduction and also getting the group more warmed up to this. And thank you very much already to see all these great responses from the participants. I know it's a bit hard when we do this online, and we can't really hear each other. If there's a function that we can actually see each other's faces, it might be a bit easier to know that there's some more interaction that we can have with our colleagues here. But it's great to see that we have such great cohort of experts for our. And now that I see the screen is back, so appreciate again,
Okay, thank you.
bringing the group here today. So I was paused just now when I wanted to echo with what you, Minal, were saying, why we're doing this today, because we know that there has been increasing progress in recent years in the way that we the use of standardized, comprehensive sustainability criteria to appraise the economic value of transport investment proposals. But we know that it's yet to become a new normal over conventional methods. And making transport projects bankable is increasingly important in order to really make it mainstream into something that we can, like what you said, we can see on a day-to-day basis and how we can each benefit from it. So a more comprehensive and integrated approach is proposed, one that values more impacts and outcomes, as well as the broader economic and social and environmental synergies, emerging across the integrated implementation of public transport, walking and cycling. So with that spirit, there's a policy paper that we have shared with our participants in advance to today's workshop. And this paper has been elaborated as a collaboration between SLOCAT and the Transformative Urban Mobility Initiative, or TUMI, which many of you may know, with support from partners including MobiliseYourCity. So the objective of this paper is to reveal the structural problems in economic appraisals for transport that prevent investments in public transport, walking and cycling at scale. And also we want to enhance the understanding of the solutions to reverse these problems. So this policy paper really advocates for a shift towards a wider sustainability lens. So we wanted to take this opportunity to really get to know how experts on the ground feel about these issues and the challenges that it's facing and what kind of solutions that they would want to apply in their day-to-day. So in the next moments, I would be sharing the issues that we have gathered with conventional economic appraisals for land transport. Next slide, please. So the first one of the problem is about the narrow scope of conventional economic appraisal methods. Currently, traditional economic appraisals methods for transport projects tend to focus on a fairly limited range of factors. For example, they mostly account for direct costs like capital expenditure and operations and maintenance, as well as performance matrices such as ridership or revenue generation. While these are very important, they don't capture the full spectrum of benefits that sustainable transport projects can bring. And in reality, such projects often generate indirect and induced benefits that go beyond what these traditional approaches measure. For example, by improving connectivity, a low carbon transport system can lead to greater economic activity through better access to employment, which in turn stimulates income generation and social inclusion. However, these wider impacts are often overlooked in current appraisal models, resulting in a very incomplete understanding of the true value of these investments. So how do we address this gap? We need to adopt broader indicators and tools that go beyond the narrow scope of direct costs and performance matrices. The Effort Shift Improve framework, as you can see on the bottom right side of the screen, it's a policy framework that has been central to the sustainable low carbon transport community for more than a decade. And it outlines policy measures through an integrated, intermodal, and balanced approaches. So this framework encourages avoiding unnecessary travel, shifting to more sustainable modes of transport, and improving vehicle efficiency and energy sources. And by doing so, it helps to capture not just the direct benefits of transport projects, but also their broader societal and economic contributions. And ultimately, using more comprehensive methods will lead to better informed investment decisions that fully reflect the value of sustainable low carbon transport for society. Next slide, please. Next, we have look at another common issue with the disconnect between investors and beneficiaries in sustainable infrastructure investments. So the challenge here is that with these investments, especially in transport, create significant benefits for society, such as reduced pollution, lower energy costs, better health outcomes. And these benefits are spread across many stakeholders. And investors, however, often see limited direct financial returns, making them very reluctant to invest on a larger scale. The decision making is usually centralized as well, but the benefits are dispersed, so creating a mismatch between who pays and who benefits. For example, sustainable transport can reduce public health costs through less pollution, but these benefits don't directly increase the investors' profits. So this perceived low return discourages investments, even though the broader societal gains are substantial. What do we need to do? So first, we need methods that assess the benefits for all stakeholders, households, businesses, governments, etc. And there are multiple tools which we will feature later in this workshop today to show the true value of these projects. And secondly, we do need strong multi-stakeholder collaboration, and that is very essential because by involving diverse sectors such as transport, health, and economic development sectors from the start, we can develop more holistic investment strategies, and this will help make these projects financially more viable while increasing their societal value. Next slide, please. Then we would like to focus on the issues of intangible benefits and how they're often overlooked in economic evaluations. Many benefits for sustainable projects, like improved air quality or better health, public health, they're considered intangible simply because they're not measured or they don't generate direct cash flow. So as a result, they're often undervalued or even excluded from decision-making process. And this is particularly problematic for projects like public transport, walking or cycling, which offer significant societal and environmental benefits, but are often labeled as financially unviable. For example, improving air quality through public transport or electrifying vehicles can lead to fewer respiratory diseases and lower healthcare costs. But because these benefits don't directly translate into cash profits, they're often not factored into economic appraisals. And this leaves projects that could significantly improve public health and productivity undervalued. So what we need is that we need to expand the analysis to quantify these so-called intangible benefits, such as reduced healthcare costs and increased productivity. Later in this training, we'll hear from colleagues from NYC, ISD, ADB, and IRAP to talk about how different approaches and tools can be applied to projects in order to quantify these intangible benefits and thus significantly improve the economic case for sustainable transport. Next slide, please. Finally, there is a lack of systemic vision and integration across different stakeholders groups in sustainable transport planning. One key issue is that stakeholders often have varying priorities and visions for the future, and this makes it very difficult to align and collaborate effectively. For example, engineers, economists, and urban planners may approach the transport projects from different angles, which lead to siloed decision-making. And as a result, we miss out the mutually reinforcing benefits that come from integrating solutions like walking, cycling, and public transport. And another challenge is the lack of coordination and data sharing between these groups. Multidisciplinary collaboration is very essential to optimize the whole transport system. But it's often really difficult to gather, share, and interpret data in a way that benefits everyone involved. And this fragmentation can prevent us from realizing the full potential of sustainable low-carbon transport solutions. So what do we need? We need to first foster multi-stakeholder engagement, guided by a strong political vision that integrates knowledge across sectors. And this kind of inclusive approach will help ensure that benefits of different transport modes, such as walking, cycling, and public transport, are combined effectively. And a shared ambitious strategy can break down silos, allowing us to optimize the overall transport system rather than focusing on individual parts. And by working together, we can create a more integrated, sustainable transport system that maximizes societal benefits and financial viability. Next slide, please. So now just a very quick Mentimeter, just to get to know how you feel about what we have shared just now. If you could take out your phone or your laptop again to type in the Mentimeter questions. We just wanted to see how these 4 issues affect your current work by ranking it. Which issue you think affects your current work the most? Whether it is the narrow scope of the quantitative analysis, or it is the disconnect between investors and beneficiaries, or is the absent or the limited economic valuation of the intangible benefits, or is that the limited systemic vision and integration of knowledge across different stakeholders? I'm seeing already that the lack of integration of knowledge across stakeholders is being ranked by #1 by the most number of participants in our workshop. And it's interesting that today we're also gathering a group of experts from different fields. And perhaps, it is very true that because we all might all be coming from different backgrounds, different areas of practices as well, that sometimes you will focus on different areas of work within the project, but not necessarily having a very connected or interdisciplinary overview of what's needed. I'm seeing that the ranking for narrow scope or intangible benefits were swapping just now. But indeed, the narrow scope of quantitative analysis is also becoming a bigger problem, because even though I was mentioning just now about the avoid shift in improved framework, which is supposedly shared by the sustainable transport community over the last decade, but it probably stays within the community, and whether at the ground, the implementation, the engineers and the experts that are on the ground, they might not be familiar with the narrative that the policy framework experts are referring to, and that could create a gap between what they see in terms of the scope. So I see that the answers are coming down. So interesting to see that the disconnect between investors and beneficiaries are not as influencing your current work as I think it would be, because I think this is quite a structural problems in terms of the nature of these projects. But anyways, thank you very much for your insights. I think it gives us a little bit of idea of perhaps how we can also explain some of our findings in the next segments. So with this, I'll pass over the time to my colleague, Nicola, who is going to talk about the economic cases for walking, cycling, and public transport.
Yes, Alice, thanks a lot. And yeah, let's get back to the presentation. Now I will present you kind of the economic case for public transport, walking, and cycling. And let's directly jump into it. And I believe, like, you're probably well aware kind of that the reason also why we're talking about this topic and why we want to scale it up is because we believe and we are sure that there are several benefits of pushing these public these modes of transport. As you can see here on the slides, for example, among the key benefits are like the reduced CO2 emissions, the long and healthier lives through increased physical activity, for example. Then there's also like a lot of congestion relief, less traffic on the streets through like better and more efficient transport systems. Then we think also, like, of course, road safety, road crashes will be reduced, and associated costs will go down, which is a huge relief for governments and of course people and individuals. And then there are many other significant benefits, like savings of fuel and transport costs, as well as improved access to services, and also like job creation and new job opportunities through these such activities that overall will help us to strengthen the economy and the social dimensions of a system. Then here, this slide, it's a bit heavy in terms of text and in terms of content, but it just tries to a little bit illustrate the really wide-ranging impacts of societal transport investments and how they benefit specific and various actors like the government, private sector, and the households. I will not go into detail for all of them. We now kind of just provide some examples of impacts for active mobility, bus rapid transit, and also for transport electrification. And you can see how kind of they benefit the different actors assumed under our study, and kind of also we explained our thinking behind it. For example, also like you see this one example of where we had like this checkbox for households in personal centers, because there are certain, of course, benefits of better active mobility, better access, and better kind of housing prices. But then it also depends, like if you are a property owner or if you're just somebody who rents and might then be affected by increased rents and by increased prices. So this might be then less kind of positive impact. But overall, as you can see, especially for individuals and for households, there are a lot of kind of positive benefits across all transport modes, across all of these different impacts that we have here. And now we want to actually quiz you a little bit. So also as part of our study, we have done a meta-analysis of kind of all major studies that kind of indicate how much economic return a certain project will provide. And so that's why we would like kind of, before we show you the results, we would first like to quiz you and to see actually what you think about it. So kind of, we want to ask you, for every US dollar invested in public transport, what do you think, how much US dollar are going returned into the social or into our economy for this? So let me turn on the Mentimeter. So kind of you should have a scale from 1 to 20. So kind of you can indicate like for every $1 US invested, how many US dollars do we get out of kind of pursuing public transport, cycling, walking, and then the combination of active mobility, walking and cycling combined, or the whole integrated approach of all these three modes together. So please kind of cast your vote for each of them. What do you think the return for each of them? Great, I see the first responses are coming in. And the very interesting thing about Menti is the numbers you see there, the dots and the numbers you see, so like the average value, but then kind of in the background, you can see also kind of the indication of the individual kind of values that have been scored to. So like, for example, like walking, you can see like a very huge variety of kind of going from probably from $2 up to like all the $20, and everything in between seems to be covered. And it's similar with active mobility, and yeah, cycling as well seems to be very well scored throughout the whole, or evaluated throughout 1 to 20. So yeah, please cast your vote. We are still under the same code, so 76114480menti.com. In case you I'll give it, wait a little bit more. Any further votes? I see 11 people already put in their votes. But overall, I see many of you kind of put also like the average, of course, is the kind of leads it to somewhere like in the middle of the available range from 1 to 20 for most of the modes, and I see the most indication, like most return is assumed for this integrated approaches of public transit, walking and cycling together. Yeah, I don't see any new votes coming in, so maybe we can go back to the presentation. So yeah, please try to remember kind of the results. I mean, I can switch back again, but let's see. So here kind of the results that we get from meta-analysis. We try to be as comprehensive as possible. Of course, there still might be studies that we've missed or further examples. Also, it really much depends on the regional context or kind of on the project context, and even though we are kind of try to look for studies with focus on more comprehensive analysis, that they are all like based on different methodologies. So the benefits they might include really change from study to study. So that's also why you can actually see for many of the modes here a very wide range. So public transport, for example, delivers $5 for every US dollar invested. Cycling, we had a very wide range of 2 to 20 from 2 to until 19. So actually, then like kind of what you provided with in between, I believe it was somewhere like it went down to like 7.5, but yeah, but still I think it's very well in the range, as well as with others, one with walking, where we had like from very low 1 to 0.3, but really up to the limit of 20. So very high return for some assessments, and then definitely actually accessibility also having a very similar return. And then for integrated approaches, there we actually kind of had the least number of studies available or possible to identify. That's why the range is quite kind of narrow, and I actually kind of probably, if with the customer voters as well, I would have agreed probably with you that kind of the integrated approaches are one of the most beneficial ones. But the studies that we were able to find didn't yet kind of push into this direction. But so let's a little bit dive deep into the results and discuss how we get to these kind of ranges or like this indications. So, for example, if you explore the benefits of public transport, you can see that many of them are like economically and environmentally. So, like around job creation, reduction of global greenhouse gas emissions, and then of course lower community costs. As you saw in the previous slide, yes, for every US dollar invested in public transport, there's a return of around $5 in economic benefits. There were some studies who indicated that kind of if there could be like 4.6 million additional jobs created if public transport would be extended and improved in the 100 major cities around the world. And also like public transport already now contributes very largely to reducing emissions and to keeping urban emissions low, but further expansion could really kind of further almost halve global transport emissions in the future. And then also the community costs for public, the community costs and savings through it are also like kind of 10 times higher for public transport than for private car travel. So again, it shows very, very significant economical benefits. On the right in the box, you can see the case study from the United States, where one investment of $1 billion US could create up to 50,000 jobs. Then even without this huge amount of investment, even lower investment volumes could also like kind of generate huge capital investments or operating benefits and so on for the urban economy, shops and people living in cities. In general, studies also show that kind of home values are 24% higher in areas with public transport compared to areas without public transport. And then, as with the greenhouse gas emissions, 22.7 billion liters of petrol could be saved, or 63 million tons of CO2 are reduced every year thanks to public transport. Looking at walking, we can see that for every US dollar invested, we have an economic range of 1.3 to 20 US dollar, which also again makes walking a very incredibly valuable investment. The main returns are like health benefits, the local economies, and also like other benefits around kind of attractiveness and the journeys. Here there's a lot of evidence, for example, that walking projects help to like stimulate local economies, as people who walk tend to spend more in local businesses compared to those using motorized transport. Then, of course, you need to be aware, like walking is the start and the end of every trip. And it's a very crucial link to public transport systems feeding like public transport and other services as well. So anything that improves walking and like it also kind of has direct positive impacts on other transport modes. So and the result also has huge impacts on our overall quality of life. Here on the right, we showed the case study of Bogota, Colombia, where a study kind of looked at or calculated the potential impacts of increasing the share of walking from 20 to 25%, where then trans emissions would be reduced by around 6.9% at the cost of around $17 per ton CO2. If you combine walking and BRT and cycling into a single kind of project, then emissions reduction could be increased up to 25%, but at a higher cost of around $30 per ton of CO2. So again, showing that at least in these studies, walking was very cost efficient and very kind of impactful project approach. And now looking at cycling, you can, as I showed in the table, kind of every US dollar invested in cycling gives us a cumulative return of around $2 to $19. Here again, we have mainly kind of economic opportunities and health and environmental benefits. Cycling investments present major economic opportunities. Of course, there's this whole cycling industry, like manufacturing and retail, but also again, by having more people cycling, it also like boosts and kind of improves local economies, and local shops are seeing more visits than by motorized transport modes. Then cycling also brings very substantial health and environmental benefits. It's by far the most cleanest mode of transport. Fuel savings and healthcare benefits also lead to a very strong economic return. So like even if you just, as I said, like some methodologies really only looked at like health benefits, and then even there they had like very strong kind of returns of the investments, as you can see here. We show here another example of Sydney, Australia, where the assessment of a bicycle network showed very immense health benefits, and kind of that improved journey already kind of helped to account for 41% of the total benefits for the project. And then there are many other kind of net benefits that have been not be able to fully kind of account for, but then there will be a lot of kind of gains for individuals and cities as well. Then here, quick combination, because as we're running out of time for the segment, quick combination for the other things that we showed in the table. For example, for active mobility, there we had like the economic return of 1.3 to $19. And again, here mainly kind of a lot of studies mentioned and pointed towards health benefits as the key driver. It also like kind of course, reduces air pollution, improves public health, and overall, overall improves livability of individuals. In integrated transport solutions, there we had a couple of case studies from around the world, but not too many. But they showed us kind of a return from up to like between 1.1 to up to $4.5 per every US dollar invested. And here again, we had like improved accessibility, congestion relief, safety, and kind of a very comprehensive approach in terms of many different values that have been added and improved. So I hope that kind of this helps you, and I will pass it now back to Alice for the next segment on kind of how to evolve now, how to move us towards more comprehensive economic appraisals.
Thank you very much, Nicola, for these very extensive evidences and examples. So in this next section, we will look at the 4 main recommendations that we offer in the policy paper that we have developed for decision makers to evolve conventional economic appraisals for land transfer investments. And the goal here is to, as what we've been mentioning throughout, is to shift towards broader sustainability criteria that more accurately reflect the financial and economic cases for investing in integrated public transport, walking, and cycling solutions. And these recommendations are drawn from a literature review and also an assessment of good practices, each accompanied by a practical tool. And so here are the recommendations. Establish suitable policy and institutional frameworks in standardized, comprehensive, and integrated economic appraisals, approaches, and tools, building multi-stakeholder engagement in the economic appraisal process, and quantifying and monetizing all costs and benefits. Recommendation 1 and 3 relate to the context of enabling environment needed to consistently apply economic appraisals based on broader sustainability criteria. And recommendations 2 and 4 focus on evolving the methods itself. So all recommendations should be implemented in a parallel and in a mutually reinforcing manner. Next slide, please. So to promote sustainable low carbon transport, it is first essential to establish very strong policy and institutional frameworks. And that means creating clearer long-term strategies that guide and encourage investments in public transport, walking, and cycling. One example of a policy signal is the prioritization of the sustainable transport hierarchy in the Wales Transport Strategy of 2021, which was subsequently used to align the Welsh Transport Appraisal Guide in 2024. So efforts should focus on achieving also a robust and ambitious guiding vision, preferably established by a national government like this example, that can galvanize multi-stakeholder action. Raising awareness among decision makers of systemic and integrated frameworks for sustainable low carbon land transport is key. At the beginning of this training, we talked about the Avoid Shift Improve framework, which offers a structured approach. This sustained application of this framework across planning and financing strategies, as well as the procurement processes, can ultimately lead to the phase out of fossil fuel subsidies and the adjustments of financing mechanisms like taxes, costs, and prices to favor integrated public transport, walking, and cycling solutions. And lessons can be learned from the horizontal and vertical coordination used in the Sustainable Urban Mobility Plans approaches in cities like Malmö or Utrecht to see how collaboration between different government levels lead to success. When we align efforts across sectors, we can build transport systems that benefit everyone and contribute to sustainability goals. Next slide, please. We highlight the need to standardize comprehensive economic appraisals for transport projects. And this can be achieved by defining the challenges, identifying opportunities, and determining the social, economic, and environmental outcomes for different stakeholders over the time of the project. To fully capture the social, economic, and environmental impacts of sustainable low-carbon land transport projects, it is very essential to use several methods and to develop a diverse set of models. No single model offers a complete overview of all relevant indicators. For example, the SAFI methodology, which we will feature in just a bit, use systems thinking, system dynamics, simulation, spatial modeling, and project finance modeling, and all integrated into a single analytical framework. The cost-benefit analysis and cost-effectiveness analysis, together with the multi-criteria analysis, can be used to assess the economic viability of a project. And ideally, the methods and the tools used should be open source and easily accessible. Otherwise, stakeholders with limited resources may find it very difficult to apply them. Additionally, any appraisals relying on input data, which may be biased or not fully representative of all relevant aspects. Therefore, it is very crucial to raise decision makers' awareness of these limitations. This will ensure the long-term impact and the effective adoption of evolved economic appraisals for land transport. So we invite you to take a look at the policy paper again, and we will also release the final version very soon. To learn more about a specific case study from the FLOW project, which integrates the congestion reduction potential of walking and cycling while considering environmental, social, and economic aspects within a single integrated tool. Next slide, please. Our next recommendation emphasizes the importance of multi-stakeholder engagement in the economic appraisals for transport projects. Engaging a diverse group, including governments, the private sector, NGO, local communities, and civil society, ensures that the projects are locally relevant, inclusive, and widely supported. By involving a broad range of stakeholders, we can better identify key performance indicators, counter the influence of narrow interest groups, and improve the overall viability of the project. Local knowledge from these groups also enhance data availability, reliability as well, reducing the need for assumptions and generalization. So there are tools like the causal loop diagrams that could be very helpful in this process because they integrate diverse perspectives into a comprehensive framework, as seen in the non-motorized transport project in Coimbatore, India. This broad engagement improves not only the planning and the implementation phases, but also strengthens the project's economic and social viability. Next slide, please. Finally, in sustainable low carbon land transport, the economic and social impacts are often more prominent than the revenue collected and the budgets invested. Therefore, it's very crucial to identify and quantify, analyze via economic valuation all the impacts surrounding a project, including the social and environmental impacts as we were just discussing. A best practice for quantifying and monetizing wider benefits is the Health Economic Assessment Tool, or the HEAT tool, developed by the World Health Organization. So the HEAT tool is a web-based tool that estimates the health and economic impacts of walking, cycling, and electric cycling. Assessment are possible on the national and local levels, and the tool ensures minimal data input requirements through the availability of default values. The main benefits of the tool are that it calculates the mortality benefits of regular physical activity from walking and cycling, and it also integrates the effects of air pollution and crashes on mortality. So the carbon emissions from shifting from motorized travel to walking or cycling are also shown. And the HEAT tool also expands appraisals by improving estimates of direct benefits from walking and cycling. So additionally, an evolved cost-benefit analysis have to be formed by considering the financial performance, which is using the cash flow directly related to the project, considering the holistic economic performance, which considers all of the social and environmental impacts to determine the broader societal contributions of the project, and also considering the financial and economic returns by economic actors, so like including the private sector, government, and citizens. And these considerations should determine then the financial sustainability for the investors, determining the economic sustainability, including all the costs and benefits for human development and prosperity. And then also lastly, determining the formulation of the most adequate financing strategy, whether the project generates sufficient positive impacts for all beneficiaries. Important concepts related to sustainable development, such as transfer poverty, can also be more explicitly considered in the analysis when using a systemic or societal approach, especially in relations to the interpretation of the CBA results. So with that, I'm very happy to turn over the time back to Minho, where he will tell us a bit more about the multi-criteria assessment for sums.
Thank you so much, Alec. Thank you so much, Alice. Thank you so much, Nicola, for your presentation. I think it has been really useful and insightful about the policy paper that we expect to have in the upcoming weeks. And of course, that we already shared the preliminary version with all the participants today. And of course, that will help us to familiarize a little bit with this methodology and to understand what are the next steps forward. I will share my screen. I have a small presentation. I will try to keep it really short to make sure that we are still on time, and then we can pass to the discussion. But today we wanted to talk about a little bit on how is the process of of selecting the measures within the some that Mobilize Your City supports. So first of all, just the objectives. We would like to understand what is the articulation between the vision of the plan and the plan of mobility development. Also understand how do we approach to these projects, to this measure selection, and to identify what are the methods of definition of mobility scenarios and measures. First of all, my name is Milnael Gomez. I am sustainable mobility expert at Mobilize Your City Secretariat in Brussels. And of course, you can contact me in case of any doubt or additional request. So first, I would like to talk about how the Mobilize Your City some guidelines can help us in this process as well. So we already know that we have all the measures and how to include all the different elements in order to make sure that we are going to select and implement a project, but we are mostly focused on the urban planning and the urban mobility development. So last year we launched the guidelines for Mobilize Your City to develop sustainable urban mobility plans focused on the global south, meaning Latin America, Eastern Europe, Africa, and Asia. Within this methodology, we have documents that help us to prepare a readiness assessment of the city in order to allow us to identify if a city is ready to develop a SAMP. Also, to set the objectives in favor of climate change mitigation and adaptation, and it totally relates to what we just talked about during this session. So how to make sure that we are also considering all the benefits, the climate benefits of developing a sustainable urban mobility. As well, how can we make sure to take the most innovation of digital technologies and how to establish sustainable mobility observatories for monitoring and evaluation of the SUMP. This is a really important thing. As you can see, the data is sometimes scarce, and in order to make sure that we are taking the informed decisions, we will need to have the mobility observatories. As well, we have the guidelines that are embedded within a robust system of support for cities. That is the Mobilize Your City Secretariat vision and mission. But how can we translate the goals into scenarios? And we know within this some cycle that we would like to have a phase, and in the phase two, in the vision setting, the goal setting, and the scenario building, we will need to have a clear diagnosis, and the goals are necessary to have impactful and realistic relevant scenarios and measures, meaning that we already have all the information that we gathered from the diagnosis of the city, and then we're going to translate that into our vision and our goals, and then how are we going to build the different scenarios that are going to contain the different measures that we are going to implement in the upcoming 10 or 15 or 20 years, according to the horizon that the SUMP takes into account. It is important to have a proper data collection so that we can have a good diagnosis and also to quantify all the impacts, which allow us to have a better preparation for the plan. And first, and also the most important part for our methodology is the participation of the different stakeholders and the community itself to make sure that the plan, the measures, and the scenarios that are being selected are aligned with what they are going to implement in the upcoming years. So we have the diagnosis, where we are, the goals, where we want to go, and the scenarios. How do we go there? And we have the different set of measures that can be identified with different brainstormings or benchmarks with the different stakeholders. And also we need to take into account what it's being done or planned to be done in the future or in the near future. And it is important to take into account that there can be as many measures as they are necessary. And how to group the different measures, we're going to talk about a little bit later. But we have the different scenarios that are compounded by different type of measures, and some measures can be part of different scenarios according to the objectives or according to the different time scopes that we are taking into account. We will also, those scenarios must reflect the goals of the plan and what we are implementing in the upcoming future, or what are the intentions of the city in the near future. We need to take into account that the scenarios are not frozen, meaning that it is just a tool and they can change over time, either by the implementation of the SUMP or also just because we have to adapt to the different strategies that are being implemented in the future. They have to be evaluated against the reference case. For instance, in this case, we have the reference case. And also we need to take into account that we have to evaluate them between them. So we have a general idea of how much is it going to take, how much is it going to cost, and what are the expected benefits in terms of the expected time travel reduction, or the reduction on emissions, or the increase on modal share of public transport. It all depends on the different goals that we have for our plan. And we have to evaluate this based on the economical, technical, financial, and institutional feasibilities, taking into account a holistic approach to properly evaluate our scenarios. The scenarios can have a multiple set of measures, and those measures, the selected scenario, will be the one that we are going to implement in the upcoming future. We have this, the SUM cycle, vision, goals, scenarios, and measures. That should be a little bit earlier. I'm sorry about that. And we have the study case of Medan in Indonesia. So in this case, we have all the different steps which are included for the SUM. And here we present the goals that we established for this SUM. So we want to have a convenient and well-connected transport network, to tackle the current and potential growing issues of congestion, an inclusive infrastructure that improves accessibility and enables safer journeys, and also an environmentally friendly transport ecosystem that improves urban livability. In order to achieve all of that, we will need an enabling environment, which consists of effective transport governance, and also we need to have the financing of the transport system for the construction and also the funding for its operation. In this case, we have three different scenarios. The first one is the reference case, which takes into account the business as usual, meaning that we only have the projects that are committed in the baseline year, 2020, and they are going to be implemented in the upcoming year. So no further actions, just what we have planned, and we are not going to invest a little bit more on sustainable mobility. But what happens if we start to change a little bit on the projects that we are going to implement in the future? Then we will have the scenario 2. That is a conventional scenario, which already has some focus on sustainable mobility. The investments are bare minimum. They are not really the high standards that we would like to have for our cities, but we already have some little ambition. And what happens if we are betting really hard on sustainable mobility? Then we will have a master transit implementation, some changes in the governance, and some investments that are important, and there's a strong support for the change of this paradigm. Then we have all these different scenarios, and we are going to check which type of measures are we going to include according to the scenario. But also important to take into account, those scenarios are just a tool, and it can be mixed according to the needs of our city. We will need to know also what type of measures are we going to include in our plan. In order to identify the type of measures we can use, we have to address the urban challenges. We can use also a brainstorming with stakeholders to identify measures. Also, to make sure the compatibility within the plan and committed developments. So take into account what we already have planned for our future. The measures shall cover all the different types of mode of transportations and all the time horizons that are included within the plan. And the measures can be as numerous as we will require. There are some tools that you can check a little bit in detail after we share these slides, but we have the Sandberg case in order to identify which type of measures can we include. Then also to identify which are the right scenarios and which is the time frame for each measure, we have to take into account that our scenarios need to consider a proper split for the measures. And a coherent split will include the type of measure, the acceptability, the objective or challenge, also the focus area, the geographic scope of our measure, which are the costs if we need to do a bundling for external financing. For instance, if we are having if we are having a set of bike paths in our city, it is better to create a whole network just rather to have a specific bike path in our project to present to financing. As well, we need to take into account the larger projects, for instance, a BRT system or a metro system, that the non-motorized transportation measures can help or contribute in order to increase the impact of these larger projects. So, and regarding the measures, we need to take into account that they can be part of different scenarios and they can be differentiated according to the scenarios, meaning that we can include them in the short term or the long term. And we can have scenarios with similar measures, but that cover the different set of modes in the same time horizons. The time horizons must be the same for all the different scenarios that are being proposed. We're going to check that in our example. As well, the sums can be adapted and can be evaluated over time regarding the MRV process. So if we identify that we cannot achieve the initial goals, we can also think about what are going to be the goals in the future. And specifically for the case of Medan, we have all these 6 general themes, but we would like to focus on sustainable mobility, public transport and non-motorized transportation. But also regarding that we have all the different set of measures, because some of those measures in all the other themes are going to contribute towards sustainable mobility policies. For instance, in the urban land use and social, we also have to promote public transportation in this scenario 3, which is the disruptive one, in the short term, and to develop comfortable and safe sidewalks in the medium term for the scenario conservative and disruptive. Just always have to take into account that the scenario 1 reference doesn't have any measure because it's the one where we are not considering any kind of measure from the sump. Then for road and private vehicles, we also have some traffic calming measures in the city center and periphery, which could have an impact on non-motorized transportation. As well, the park and ride and public transportation hubs, which could be an interesting measure to increase the modal share, to increase the modal transfer between private to public transportation. And of course, we have this scenario, the sustainable mobility part of our plan. And then we have to build a new BRT line to increase its coverage, to increase the network, the city buses network, also implement water buses, to have urban rapid rail lines on the medium term, to increase the service level of existing rail, to build a tramway or a tram train, as well to increase the quality service of minibuses or existing buses, school buses, employee buses, safe non-motorized transport ways, and key multimodal hubs. Each one of those measures can be implemented on the short, medium, or long term, and it will change according to the scenario that we are proposing. But within all our analysis, we will take into account all these measures in order to make sure that we are going to implement the best possible plan for the city that is going to be implemented, say it again, implemented in the 15 years of duration of the plan. Same happens with digitalization, passenger information in real time at the stations that will improve the readability of our users, as well the fair intermodality for the medium term in the conservative scenario, the governance, the transit authority, or a reform of the minibus industry under all the province. And lastly, the environment and air quality also include renewable energies for rail transportation on the short term under the disruptive scenario. So I would like to close with this slide just to make sure that all different processes is taken into account. So we have a measures identification, then we have the confirmation and prioritization, then we have all the transport modeling block, which includes the refinement and the modeling, the quantification of the measures, including the budget analysis, what are their impacts, and then we also need to take into account the evaluation of those impacts in order to have a scenario comparison and the selection of the final measures. It's important to consider that in our methodology, the most important element is the selection through the steering committee of the SUMP formulation process. And with this, I will just highlight these takeaways. First one, the definition of scenarios and measures is a participative and iterative process, so we can go, come, and forward. It's like a whole process in order to make sure that we are going to prioritize sustainable measures that are valid at political level, and also that we are going to increase the further implementation and the evaluation process of these projects. As well, the measures established in this scenario are selected should have the stakeholders and the community approval, making sure that these measures and these scenarios are already in the mind and in the plans of all the citizens and all the city officials. And then it's not something that we are going to keep changing all over again from scratch every time. As well, the further socioeconomical evaluations might be required for the specific analysis of each one of those projects. And it's important to quantify all the potential benefits according to the information that is available and according to the specific context that we have in our cities. So I would like to thank you all for your participation. And I will give the floor to Nicola so that we can continue with the discussion and the participation of our panelists.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And yeah, we'll use the last 20 minutes now to briefly show a couple of other very useful and powerful tools that can be applied to have more comprehensive approaches towards assessments of transport activities. So as you can see now here on my screen, I hope all of them are also here and can hopefully also turn on their cameras. But yeah, so we will. I will be joined first by Mikhail Kapetanakis, research analyst with the Economic Law and Policy Program at the International Institute for Sustainable Development (IISD), who will show us about the SAVI, the Sustainable Asset Evolution tool. Then I will have a question for Bertrand Goro, who is the principal trans specialist at Asian Development Bank (ADB), and lastly but not least, Rob McInerney, I hope I pronounced it correctly, the CEO of International Road Assessment Program (IRAP). I hope all of you are here, and I would first start with Mikhail. If you can please turn on also your camera. I'm not sure if I can see you here in this list.
Hello. Hi, Nicola.
Hello. Okay, great. Yeah, kind of the first question. The question to you is kind of because SAVI is integrates several aspects around environmental, social, and governance risk into the infrastructure investment decisions, and but such aspects require a lot of data. So kind of how can the SAVI tool really support this more comprehensive and transparent economic appraisal assessment for transport investments, particularly in low and middle income countries or emerging markets where data might be more scarce and kind of less reliable. So, yeah, how do you deal with this? And yeah, please tell us a bit more about SAVI.
Thank you very much for your question, Nicola. So basically, our SAVI methodology was basically developed in response to traditional infrastructure assessments that consider only financial indicators and do not often neglect economic, social, environmental parameters in decision making, especially those that go beyond the immediate scope of transport projects, for example. So what we try to do with the SAVI methodology is to look at a transport project in an integrated and systemic way. So we look at transport infrastructure, of course, from a financial perspective, but also from a society perspective. And in order to do so, We value tangible and intangible parameters. So, as it was mentioned earlier in this session, the SAVI methodology basically combines different modeling approaches to show the financial performance of projects under different climate change scenarios. And very importantly, it places a financial value in many economic, social, and environmental added benefits and avoided costs of transport projects. For example, it could be added benefits of time saved, or employment creation, or avoided cost of air pollution, avoided cost of CO2 emissions, or traffic accidents. Going back to the scarcity of data that you mentioned, we basically try to customize our assessments to different regional or national contexts as much as possible, working collaboratively with different stakeholders in order to reflect the local conditions more appropriately. So basically, by doing all of these different steps, um, placing a financial value, combining different simulation approaches and using different data, and also customizing our assessments, um, economic appraisals overall are more transparent and comprehensive, and they also reduce project-related risk and uncertainty. So the more we kind of integrate economic, social, and environmental indicators in the transport assessments in question, the more policymaker can actually prepare and plan ahead to mitigate these long-term potential risks. At the same time, what we have seen and a wide range of assessment at ISD, where we basically apply the SAVI methodology in the transport sector or beyond. So we have also applied it. We can also apply it in energy, in water, in buildings or nature-based infrastructure sectors. What we have seen is that it actually does increase the effectiveness of investments and also delivers positive and environmental impacts. So actually, these projects that we have assessed using the SAVI methodology, they do perform better and do actually maximize the value for money from taxpayers while also delivering social environmental benefits. So they actually do have a higher benefit to cost ratio at the end. And I would say my last point, going back to the scarcity of data, which is one of the biggest problems actually, especially in emerging economies, where a lot of these transport assessments take place. Basically, by doing these assessments and um, you know, kind of applying the SAVI methodology to all of these different transport infrastructure across different assets. So it could be bus rapid transit, it could be rail, it could be metro systems, it could be cycling projects, and so on. So by doing this, we actually aim to build a database of all of these different economic, social, and environmental impacts, um, which then can inform transport assessments in the future and actually, as much as possible, increase the accuracy of these results and reflect appropriately the long-term economic, social, environmental risks in each case. So we try to find a balance between getting as much local data, but also having this database of like standardized data that we can use, for example, the social cost of carbon or other different indicators that we can integrate into our assessments to increase the accuracy of our results using SAVI. And I will stop there. Please let me know if you have any questions in following this. But thank you very much.
No, thanks a lot. I think that was very comprehensive, very good answer. And yeah, also I would encourage the participants, if you have any questions, please post them in the chat. Mikhail, also if you have any links to SAVI, please share it in the chat box. I think that's would be, I think, very helpful for
I'll share some
audience.
links. Thank you.
Great, thanks. And yeah, and now on to ADB and Beto. If you can, I hope you're here and can hear us. I see you're muted, but yeah, now I can see on the screen. Hey, thanks a lot for joining. Yeah, kind of the question to you was could you give us some examples of how the tool that ADB uses addresses the trade-offs between environmental, social, and economic objectives, and kind of what are the key elements that make a transport project highly rated for sustainability at ADB?
Yeah, thank you, Nicola, and hi to everyone. Good day. Oh, sorry. Should always mute our mobile phones. Yeah, so it's first of all, it's great to be here with all of you. TUMI, Mobilize Your City, and SLOCAT, of course, we have been partners for quite some time and are jointly involved in all of these activities promoting sustainable urban mobility. In the case of ADB across Asia and the Pacific. So you're referring to the STAR methodology that has been developed quite some time ago now, and I think at the time we were kind of ahead of the others, working with partners. SLOCAT was involved at the time, but also others. And it's interesting to see how the terminology evolved, looking at the tool, how it is today. It has been used at the time and developed to be able to have a standard approach to project evaluation in terms of sustainability. So STAR stands for Sustainable Transport Appraisal Rating. So this methodology exists. I will not go into the details of that, but that has been used also for assessing the Rio +20, and it proved to be efficient in terms of looking at various type of transport system and being able to compare them, basically translating into wide categories from highly sustainable to highly unsustainable, and try to quantify that. So for those who are interested, it's online, a paper on that. You can see the various categories of indicators, trying to address the question that were behind is what do we need to measure, what is sustainability, and what was the interpretation of sustainability at the time, but how should this rating be conducted, what is a sustainable project, and beyond this, all this methodology and who prepares the rating and how accessible it is. Then a lot of things that have been said today are incredibly important, and I learned a lot from everyone, as always. Important because we are reaching the time where we want to revisit this, because things have evolved. We've heard a lot of things, but surely when it comes to active mode, vocabilities, and all these things that are a big part of sustainable urban mobility, this is not obviously translated into the methodology that was defined some time ago. So we came to this conclusion that while the tool has been used in an efficient way and proved to be useful, now we're reaching the time where research has involved, or partner have been working, and we want to kind of upgrade it. And I think that when the team that will be tasked to do that will be on board, which is next year, we will approach our partners. That means you try to get this collective knowledge and see how it should best reflect. What I would like to repeat is that all this methodology that we describe, the issue that we are facing and our client country is facing, is how do we apply this nice methodology in developing countries. Michael has mentioned several times, and also earlier, the scarcity of data is important. So the approach of what are the databases available. So I was glad to hear about the one being developed, and how we can fill those gaps so that we have a consistent approach from one country to the others, but are sure that it is properly factored in ADB has been working, and those in this group may have heard about the Asian Transport Outlook, which is a transport database, which has a dedicated urban transport database, but looking at every kind of indicators in the Asia and Pacific region, but also in countries and developed economies also outside of the region. So there are some learning and data we can take, and that can be used in our methodology as well. So I'm not giving example here, but I'm reiterating that it is extremely important that we need, and our member countries need to be equipped with methodology that would best reflect our policies and strategy, so that we can continue and make informed decisions. Policy paper that recently been published, I wanted to mention that at the beginning, is also incredibly important in that process. So again, we're happy that we are able to work together on this. It is evolving, and that's okay. It's always for the better. The avoid shift improve paradigm has been in place and adopted, and I think among all partners something that we refer to, and yet it's difficult to assess, and all this untangible how to measure impact. So it's nice that there are piece of research work and improvement done by the partners. So again, stars exist, and it's well described, and those who are interested will find it online. What we see important is that next year we will work and try to upgrade the tool, and we'll be working with partner try to provide that. So, and I'll stop here, and thank you again for the invitation. Always like this conversation where all experts come together. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, and yeah, it's really exciting news from kind of the STAR keeps on evolving. I think I heard the first time about it in 2016, but already then it was kind of a well-established tool. But yeah, definitely it's great that it's evolving, and that you already kind of secured the data base through like the ATO initiative and other work. So yeah, thanks a lot. And if you have anything, like I think you made the audience very curious about STAR. If you have any material or anything you can share, please do it via the chat. Also, if you see any questions, please try to address them. It would be very much appreciated. But yeah, I see Rob already shared many things about the IRAP tool and the Safety Insights Explorer and the RAP tool. So thanks a lot for this. And yeah, and I would hear a little bit more about IRAP and kind of the star rating system. How does it contribute to improving road safety, like for all users and kind of for cyclists and pedestrians? And yeah, what's the IRAP approach at all? If you can please outline in the next 5 minutes. Thank you.
Are you happy if I share some slides with everyone?
Yeah, if you can share, please have the feature to share. Yeah, it's coming up. Okay, great, thanks.
Hopefully you can see that.
Yes, we can see it.
Excellent. So yeah, certainly what I'd like to share from an IRAP perspective is the concept of 5-star cities for all, and how we bring the economics of safe mobility into the decision making. We obviously know the link to climate, link to sustainable cities. Road safety is also one of the sustainable development goals. So there is the target already that member states have signed up to halve road deaths and injuries by 2030. Many of those are pedestrians and cyclists. And if we can get an effective shift to safe mobility, safe active transport, then we will make a very big contribution towards that SDG goal. Within the goal itself, there is actually 12 targets, and 2 of those targets relate to infrastructure, and that is to basically bring all journeys to a 3-star or better standard, whether that's in public transit, whether that's as a pedestrian, as a cyclist, or in micro-mobility. All forms of mobility, we are looking to get to that 3-star or better global standard. So I think the way I look at it is, did the chicken or the egg cross the road first? And my starting point would be, if they didn't have a facility to do it safely, they either wouldn't make it across the road or would be too scared to make the journey in the first place. So what we're doing within IRAP is to bring these policy positions for countries together. 3 stars or better for pedestrians, 3 stars or better for cyclists. And you can see from the chart on the right that the level of death and injury halves for each improvement in star rating. So what does it look like currently around the world? From all of the IRAP assessments that partners have completed worldwide, 84% of journeys for pedestrians are 1 or 2 star standard. Remember that death and injury spike. It's 77% for cyclists. So currently we are not providing the facilities for the safe movement of these users. And we need to do something about that. The first step is to map where are the dangerous routes. So you can see some work there that was done as part of Bloomberg Philanthropy's partnership with the World Bank and the Global Road Safety Facility, 10 cities around the world in developing economies. And the star rating took them from perhaps having no understanding of the safety of infrastructure to an absolute perfect visual understanding. You can see from those cities where are the 1 and 2 star road sections for pedestrians in Addis Ababa, in Accra, in Bogota. And the focus of today's meeting is around the economics of that. So in addition to the star ratings, IRAP assessments deliver the expected return on investment for saving lives. So we can see there bicycle lanes in Bogota, around 2 million euros of investment would deliver 51 million euros of benefits. A benefit cost ratio around 24 to 1. Traffic calming around 147 to 1. We've got footpath provisions at 82 to 1. So even in excess of those ones you provided earlier, Nicola. And importantly, for each one of those, it includes exactly where those high return investments can be placed. So as a holistic urban plan, you start to bring the economics of the safety benefits, at least, to the surface in a very visual way. Not only
do we I know it's very interesting, but because we are now at the end of the hour and officially supposed to close, where we allow, if you can please kind of take a minute, complete your presentation in this minute would be great.
Absolutely, yeah, sure can. Look, so I think the summary is that we can reduce the likelihood and severity of crashes for pedestrians and cyclists. We also have a range of tools like star rating for schools, cycle wrap, and new European partnerships called Phoebe and Elaborator that are fantastic examples where we're using traffic simulations to model those sort of benefits over a whole transport system. So all of those are available. I'll share those links with everybody, and it's there to help you better plan and better identify those economic benefits and save lives. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, sorry for suddenly interrupting, but we are running out of time. And but it was so super insightful to see about IRAP and kind of it's definitely kind of the most vulnerable like transport users are kind of really damaged on the most serviced and the most worst quality roads. So definitely thanks for sharing this insight. And yeah, IRAP is a very powerful tool as well. And now to close the session, as we also at the end now over the hour now, I give it back to Minal from SU from MobiliseYourCity.
Thank you so much, Nicola, and to all of our participants today. I think we have had a really fruitful training. We are looking forward to share the paper that was developed by SLOCAT by the end of this month, by the end of October. And you already have, of course, the preliminary version that you can consult for the time being. Thank you for your time. Thank you also for the insightful presentation from IRAP. I think it is a really useful tool that can help us to save lives, which is tremendously important and one goal that we have with the Sustainable Development Goals. And we are going to share the slides. We are also going to share the recording in a YouTube video to all the participants that were here today. And we look forward to meet you in in the next time in the following set of trainings and webinars from SLOCAT, from TUMI, and from Mobilize Your City. Thank you so much and have a nice day. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good
Thank you very
day.
much.
Thank you.